Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. I'm joined with Gary Gradley, who is a author and the purpose coach, and I'll let him explain a little bit more about that as we get talking here. But Gary, really looking forward to having you on the show. We were connected by a mutual connection who I had on the show probably a month or two ago, Rosa, and just, I love being connected to other people. So I'm really looking forward to this. But before we get
You too,
started,
Dan.
before we get started in the conversation, though, just introduce yourself to the audience, in your own words. Who is Gary today?
Yeah, Gary just turned 65 years old in the Toronto area, Toronto, Ontario, Canada area. Had my own corporate training business for 22 years. About 10 years ago, worked with 22,000 people, really in many ways transformed lives. And then when the last recession happened, a lot of things changed, and I'll maybe speak more about that later. And ultimately, then I followed my heart and changed careers. And the goal remains really a million transformed lives and 100,000 people who are acting upon their God-given purpose to really make a positive difference in this hurting world. So I follow my heart, and so I'm very pulled strongly in this direction of serving and making a specific difference now, to help the hurting world.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So you went through a time of transformation back, really kind of forced by the recession, back in 2009. Um, Talk a little bit about what took place for you personally during that time, and how you got through it, and how it really kind of redefined you and what you wanted to do moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I must say it was the most difficult time in my entire life. And so, yeah, I'm in my corporate training business, about six figures income per year, working with 1,000 people per year, leaders and employees until this 2008, 2009 Great Recession, global financial crisis. And the corporations, my clients were corporate clients, and so corporations usually spend $0 on speakers and trainers when there's a recession. So that was my experience. And so I'm working the hardest I've ever worked for an entire year, and I have zero income. And I rack up $50,000 in credit card debt. I'm living off my credit card as a single family income earner. And my focus becomes so consumed by zero income and no possibilities and the debt. And I actually come to a place of being hopeless. Like, it's the worst place to be. I would not wish it on anybody. And so I'm in this is for several months now. I just feel hopeless and cynical, like nothing good was going to happen. And until one February morning, bleak morning, 2009, I'm in my side office over here, and I just decide I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and I'm never going to choose to feel hopeless ever again. And so the light bulb went off. I had an epiphany. Well, Gary, it's just a choice. You could choose hopelessness or you can choose hope. So I decided in that moment I would never choose hopelessness ever again. And then I felt led to really talk to successful people, to clean up my own stinking and negative, cynical thinking. And so I was led to connect with many successful business leaders and church leaders, ministry leaders, community leaders, and so on. And what I saw there, which was profound, really, and these are believers of God and followers of God and in Jesus Christ, was that God's faithfulness got through them some major life crises, like depression and recession and bankruptcy and loss of a loved one and divorce and so on, major things. And so what I saw there was that God and their faithfulness enabled them to get through this and come back, get their life together. And so that gave me the same level of faith that God would get me through my difficult time, and literally raised my faith from 2 out of 10 to like an 8 out of 10, because of that faithfulness. So that was foundational. And then God said, well, put all these stories together in a book. So we did. We published the Kingdom Promise, how leading Canadians choose faith to conquer the storms of life. So that was me following my heart, right? I was led to do that. So I always tend to follow my heart, and usually the good things happen for me. And I think for many people, like your listeners, when they follow their heart, then it's probably the best decision they could make.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said is a pretty common theme among a lot of my guests, where in that time of struggle, like it really does come down to making the decision, like I'm not going to let this define me anymore. Like I'm going to choose, as humans, I think we're always drawn a little bit to want to play the victim and be the victim. But it really is a decision of I'm not going to be the victim in this situation anymore. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to make a decision to be happy. I'm going to make a decision to move forward. It's not always easy in the midst of the storm. It's tough sometimes to, quote unquote, pull up your bootstraps and start marching again. So what was that process like for you? Like you said, it was a very dark time for you. But throughout that, was there one single moment where you were like, no, I'm done with this now. It's time to move forward? Or was it just a culmination of everything that was happening for you or to you?
Yeah, it was literally that one single moment, that February, bleak morning, sitting in my side office where I've just decided that, so that was it. That was the key transition point. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'll never choose to feel hopeless ever again, and I won't. And so that was a powerful decision, as you say. I totally agree. It's a decision. In fact, it reminds me of a friend. I had lived on Vancouver Island, and she got cancer, and she decided, just like you said, this is not going to beat me. I'm going to beat this cancer, and she did. And yes, we have great medical technology as well, and faith. But yeah, so it's and that's really the premise, really, for how I want to help people going forward, is really to show them that it is really our power of choice. Every moment I believe we choose, in essence, consciously or unconsciously, because a lot of our thoughts are subconscious, right? Like 80%. The choice really is, faith and trust on one hand, and doubt and fear on the other hand. And so we're choosing, right? We're always choosing. And so it's that choice. It's our mental focus, mental emotional focus, which we can take more control of. And as we take control of it, then we can actually see the positive evidence that is happening in the world, not just all the negative evidence, right? So we want to be looking for the positive evidence, the good things, the possibilities. How can I, not why I can't. We need to kind of cross that out of our thinking. Why I can't do this, or why I can't do that, or why this is happening to me. So it's it's the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. Our focus is largely partly from the questions, our self-talk, certainly. And so if we ask bad questions, we're going to get bad answers, like why I can't. We'll get all the reasons why we can't. If we ask good questions, we're going to get all the possibilities. And these are some of the key principles I'll be talking about here later on in January, in terms of, and the other key principle there is what are my options mindset. So one of the most powerful things that I've learned, like in my 65 years of existence, and one of the most powerful questions that I've learned is what are my options? Right. So what are your options in any situation, challenge? And then we just open up all these possibilities in our mind when we ask that open-ended, possibility-oriented question. So just a few things, and then having a good support system also, I think, is crucial. Somebody you can confide in, someone who can speak life and truth and encouragement into you. And we're not sure what 2023 is going to bring, but I believe the level of uncertainty with people overall, and even in North America, is relatively high. And I think we can probably all agree that the world is in absolute chaos, probably the most uncertain that we've ever experienced in our lifetimes. And so that causes people to often, feel uncertain and feel those emotions of anxiety or doubt or, fear. or even helplessness or hopelessness. Hopefully not. Those are bad places to be, and I would not recommend them based on my experience, right? So yeah, it's I think largely it's about controlling our mental emotional focus. And I'll just say one last thing here. It's about our faith, whatever that is for you as the listener. I think there's two levels. One is faith in yourself and trust in yourself, and the other is faith and trust in the divine, right? In the creator and ruler of heaven and earth. Most people use the label God, whatever label you might be using. And so to that for me was the foundation, right? When I had that faith and that trust that God would support me through this most difficult time, then that changed everything, right? It gave me inspired action. And to me, inspired action, people are going to take action anyways, but inspired action is spirit-led action, which I believe is the most effective and the most powerful. So yeah, it's really about, our mental focus and our faith, and I think taking action thereof.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One want to shift a little bit and talk about your book again. As a fellow author, I love talking to
Yeah, yeah.
other authors about what inspired you to write it. You said you felt it was a bit of a calling. Walk through that process as to what led you after going through that that time and coming through the other side to decide to sit down and put it to paper.
Yeah, and because I am very heart led, and I think divinely guided, in essence, heart led. I believe that when we follow our heart, that our heart really is our soul, which is the most common definition is our mind, emotions, and will. And I believe that when we're praying, that we are talking to God, and when we have intuition, we're following our intuition, which is our heart, our soul, a calling. I believe that then that's when God's talking to us, and in essence, that God places something in our hearts and our souls to act upon. So that's what I did. So I started acting upon that, and I also believe that God never provides an unfunded mandate. God never gives an unfunded mandate. If God gives us a mandate, He's going to provide the resources. And so that was my experience, that God began to provide all the resources. He provided some key contacts. He provided a co-author. He provided in my region here in Ontario, opportunities to interview some of the top ministry leaders, church leaders, business leaders, high quality people. And it just so happened that as I talked with them, that I got all this insight, this positive evidence, and I felt literally called to, that God says, put all this together in a book so other people can benefit from it. And so yeah, because I guess I'm in the habit of following my heart, it's easier for me to do, and so I think I'm pretty obedient in that regard. And in fact, let me just real quick a sideline. We had a large estate home, and this is before the 2008 recession. And for like 3 months, God kept saying to me, I'd hear Him in my inner spirit, "Sell this place. I can't use you here." I said, "No, no, no. I like it here." And He kept, "Sell this place. I cannot use you here." So finally, we decided we would sell, and thank God that we did, because we would have lost the estate home in the recession when I had zero income. And so being obedient, I think, is usually, to whatever that calling is always the best decision. And so that, yeah, so it went along the journey, and God provided all the resources to do that. And so we published it, and the feedback has been exceptional. It's a great book for people to gather evidence of faith to raise their own faith level.
Yeah, I love that. So did you have prior to that, did you have any desire to write in the past, or like what was your writing experience like prior to getting this calling?
Yeah, yes, slightly. I've taken some writing programs. You've probably heard the name Bob Proctor. He was one of the personal development global leaders. I worked with him, and my wife worked with him for 5 years, like 30 years ago. And so I had some exposure there, and about the value of the book and so on. So yeah, I'd taken some book writing courses, but never did anything. I didn't have that inspired action.
right.
And because it was in my heart and it was fueling me, really, then that's why I stepped into inspired action. So yeah, I had some knowledge and some writing structures and so on, but it was really, and the idea of interviewing people was actually quite easy, right? I just had to come up with the right questions of the message that I wanted to convey, and then sort of get it all transcribed, and had an excellent co-author, which was provided. The universe provided Phil Kershaw as my co-author out of Vancouver, and so yeah, it's that's been our experience, and the book is available. Maybe you'll put in chat later the link if you want. It's
Definitely,
not available at Amazon per se.
definitely. So mentioned earlier, we are probably living in some of the most uncertain times of our lives for sure. Um, and a lot of your message, your mission is a way to create certainty in a very uncertain world. So, what are some of the guidelines that you use to create that certainty? And for me, I like to call it faith over fear.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
love it.
so what is your kind of pathway to create that certainty in an uncertain world?
Yeah, there's actually 7 proven mindset principles, which I'll be sharing at our January webinar. So I'm not going to go into those detail, but would love people to attend. But really, I think you've kind of summarized it. The first one, really, which we've kind of been speaking of, just to kind of more summarize, is that mentally choosing faith over fear. It's a mental choice, right? A mental emotional choice, and so that would be the primary one. And then the next primary one would be our own faith, our faith in God, in the Creator, and the power of prayer. Prayer is the currency of the kingdom of God, and trusting in God to help us and to provide our needs, not necessarily our wants, but our needs. And so, yeah, so God did provide for my needs, and even if there was some hardship, I certainly learned from that, and now God is using that, right, for me to help serve other people. So I went through, yes, the last recession in a very difficult way, but I've learned from that. So now I'm in a position to share some of my, learned experience, wisdom, knowledge with others to help them, so that they don't maybe have as rough time of it as I did. And so especially in North America, I mean, we're one of the best blessed, continents in the entire world. And so in contrast, we have it like so good. And so that's part of it, right? Contrast is that, let's put in contrast to majority, the whatever 85% of the population is living on whatever it is, a couple of dollars a day. So I would say, yeah, that it's largely our mindset, and it's largely our faith set. Maybe you can come up with a better name for that. But yeah, does that sort of answer in a summary your
Yeah,
question?
yeah, definitely. And one of the things you mentioned there was, really about God providing for our needs, not necessarily our wants. And I know, again, as human beings, sometimes that's tough for us to accept. We want what we want, but that's not always what we need. So, talk a little bit about your process as to, kind of going through that internal struggle of, you know, what you want, but then, accepting what God gives you that you need.
Oh, that's a really good question. Wow.
It's a battle for me.
I,
It's a battle
I,
for me sometimes. It's like, I
yeah,
want
I really have
this. I
mixed
want
emotions
this.
about
And
that
it's like,
question.
well, you need this though, So I like to try to understand how others kind of go through that battle as well.
Well, yeah, and I, like you, I'm a fairly strong personality. I'm kind of a driven personality, and I believe that God has a purpose for each of us, and God's made it pretty clear for me what my purpose is, to help people discover their God-given purpose. And so, but yes, things don't always unfold as perfectly as we desire, as we want. Um, but I believe, so what I'm learning more and more, in essence, is really to surrender and trust at a greater level. And it doesn't mean we still take the inspired action, we still plan and so on, but planning more with God's guidance, and probably through the Holy Spirit for people who are, Holy Spirit filled, um, and to more relax into that and have increase my knowingness, not just my wishingness, but increase my knowingness that XYZ will happen, or will happen perfectly enough in terms of God's perfect plan for me at this time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that answered the question.
No, it did. And again, another thing for me is just trusting the timing as well as to
Yeah,
how it's going to come together. Because again, when we want it now.
yeah,
But
yeah.
now is not always the time for us. So no, I think you definitely answered the question. And like I said, I appreciate um, you know understanding how others kind of go through that struggle that I think we all go with
Mhm.
at times. So you've mentioned it a couple times briefly throughout our conversation, but you've got an event coming up, um, January 10th through 12th. Um, a free webinar, create more clarity and certainty in an uncertain world. Again, kind of that theme that we've been talking about. But talk a little bit more about the webinar itself. Why did you want to do it? How can people um, register for it? Do they have to register for it ahead of time? What's the process there? And without giving it all away, what are some of the things they may benefit from by participating in that webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. And we really felt led to do this, especially at the start of the year, which is, for many people, New Year's resolution time, thinking time. And again, the level of uncertainty is like at the highest level, probably, at least in my lifetime. And it doesn't have to be. We don't have to feel so uncertain, because there are these proven approaches that we've been talking about. And so we're going to unpack those to a much greater degree. We're going to unpack each of the 7 proven mindset principles, including, faith and prayer and the power of that, and to really help people be focused, and have a stronger mental emotional strength. It really is a muscle. So the 7 principles will develop one's mental emotional strength, along with their faith, so they can overcome and reduce, some of the overwhelm, some of the uncertainty, and the key element will really be is that people will begin to realize that when they can get clarity on their own purpose, their own calling at this point in time, then everyone I've talked to says the same thing. And if I asked your guests right now even to close their eyes, can I do that for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, just close your eyes if you would, and just recall it. I'm going to do two parts. One is sort of not positive, the next one is more positive. But recall a time when you felt uh, perhaps depressed or concerned or overwhelmed or uncertain, and even hopeless possibly. And so just to call a time, and we're going to stay here for a moment. So, and how did that feel? What were the emotions that you were feeling? What was your energy like? What did it feel like in your body? Sensations in your body. And so for most people, it was probably like fear and overwhelm and tension and doubt, and so on. And then so open your eyes for just a moment, please. And then we're going to close our eyes again one last time here. And now let's do the positive flip side of that. And so recall a time, or the last time, when you felt you were like alive and fully on purpose, on track. You were maybe serving somebody or engaged in a project that was fulfilling. And so recall that time and how you felt then. Perhaps fulfilled, high energy, unstoppable, creative. And what a great feeling that is. And so that's really the choice, right? And so with eyes open, and if you were to do that again and take more time, you'd get the contrast. And when you were in this last state, when you were on focus, on purpose, I believe that you probably saw to a whole lot less degree any of the obstacles and noise that was out there. And so let me use this analogy here to partly answer your question and then give a few more details for the webinar. And so we take our magnifying glass here, and we know we're going to marshal the sun's rays here down into a focal point. So it's focused energy, just like a laser beam. And that's exactly what our purpose does for us. It's like a laser beam where there's power there, and we can burn, basically, sort of, I'm not sure the analogy, burn through obstacles, and we don't see much of the other noise happening around us. And so that's the power, really, of getting more clarity on one's calling, one's purpose, even for this period in time, right? A purpose for this time. And then therefore we can take inspired action and feel fulfilled. And that's what we're going to be talking about during the webinar. Help people kickstart 2023 with clarity and confidence and higher expectations. And so this is way beyond a New Year's resolution. This is really about setting and getting clarity on your purpose, your goals for 2023, and being more clear and applying these mental principles. So yeah, it's going to be powerful. So we look forward to people joining us, and so they can just register. You'll probably put in the chat later. Just the link for that is complimentary. It is the January 10th, 11th, and 12th, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so West with Central time and so on. More in the late afternoon. And so yeah, it's going to be powerful. We've done this a few times before, and people get a lot of value from it, and it really kickstarts them for the new year with more certainty and more clarity. Because remember that clarity is power and creates certainty. Clarity is power and creates certainty. And as the world becomes more and more uncertain, I believe it's critical that you and I, each of us, raise our own level of certainty to have an impactful 2023.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So yeah, definitely, if you have time, put that on your calendar. The link will be in the show notes, and sounds like something that would be very beneficial for the listeners to jump on as well.
And they can register. If they can't make it, there'll be a recording. They'll be sent out.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, it'll be high value for a little bit of time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Gary, is there anything that we didn't cover? We talked about a lot of different things. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think would be valuable for the listeners?
Yeah, I think we covered quite a bit of territory. It reminds me of Viktor Frankl says. Viktor Frankl was he wrote The Man's Search for Meaning, which was a pretty popular book, and he was a psychiatrist in the a concentration camp during the Second World War, and he clearly says, and what's really about hope, right? When we have uncertainty, we lose our hope, and in those concentration camps and in the war and any challenge, right? If you're a prisoner of war, when someone loses their hope, they usually die pretty quickly thereafter. And so that's the contrast, right? We want to build our hope. We want to build our certainty. We want to build clarity of our purpose. And as Viktor Frankl says, that every person has an assignment here, a key assignment that only they can fulfill. And the world needs them to show up. And in essence, in each of us, in you, there's a seed of greatness within you, which is most alive when you are on purpose, and you can have the greatest impact on the world and be the most fulfilled. So I would say, yeah, follow your heart, I think is what I would say. Follow your heart, and discern that. So that's really, your intuition, and maybe get some confirmation that is the right direction to go. But I've always felt whenever I follow my heart, it's always been the best decision. So encourage each of us to follow our heart in 2023, and start by joining us at this complimentary webinar starting January 10th.
Love that. Love that. Gary, outside of the webinar, how can people find you on the internet if they just want to reach out and connect with you, find out more about what you're doing? Where can they find you at on the internet?
Yeah, I'll give email and LinkedIn. So yeah, email is just GaryGradley21@gmail.com. GaryGradley21@gmail.com. And LinkedIn is just type in Gary Gradley. It's just me, and you'll find me there. Would love to chat with folks and see how I can be of service.
Absolutely. So, Gary, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of the song Gloria by Michael Franti, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Gary does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
Well, I would say there's two aspects to that. One is me being spirit filled in a place where I'm asking to be to really do the will of God the Father, and that often shows up for me and me offering to pray for anybody during that day. Whoever I meet, I'm always asking, can I give a blessing? Can I pray over you or your situation? And 95% of people say, more even, say yes, I would love to be prayed for, because majority of the population believes in that there is a God, a supreme being, and that those of us who have a relationship with the Lord, we know the power of prayer. And so yeah, praying, so being in God's will and praying on a daily basis is the little ways that I am making a difference in this world.
Love that. Yeah, I really appreciated the conversation, you taking the time to join me on the show today. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Again, Gary, really appreciate the time. This is a great conversation. I think the listeners will get a lot out of it.
Loved it, Dan. Thank you. Keep up the great work. I love what you're doing.
Matt, thank you very much.